So anyway, this has been a messed up budget season, so here we go. We have two resignations to take. Denny was recently appointed to the Board of Selectmen, so he had to withdraw from the Budget Committee, so that's one. And then Nancy Spencer-Smith, she is out of town for a little while, and she had to resign. So what we did was we advertised for two new people, and we got 4 applicants to fill the 2 positions from now until the election in March. So it'll be just until March. What's that, the 12th of people?
Well, I make a motion we accept the resignation of Dennis Miller.
I'll second it. That's perfect. I second it. I don't think we've ever done that before. But if it's going to happen, it's going to happen this year. Thank you, Denny. We accept your vote.
Thank you.
I second it.
Second it, all in favor?
Aye.
We accept your resignation, Denny.
And welcome back.
With regrets.
With regrets.
And we're glad that you're still with us.
Thanks.
Make a motion to accept Nancy Spencer-Smith's.
Dave, how did you vote on that?
No.
Yeah, he was informative. Thank you.
May I make a motion to accept Nancy Spencer-Smith's resignation?
I'll second with regrets.
All in favor?
Aye.
Dave, aye. So that's all. Those are all done. So next order of business, I think, is to get a couple new members in. I think everybody got the letters. I sent them, emailed them.
I'll make a motion to appoint Frank Zappala and Elizabeth Connor to the Budget Committee until March.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on these 2 appointments? What was the name again? Frank Zappala and Elizabeth Connor.
How does that work? So, because I was from the school board, I gave somebody else to go for it to just do them all.
Yeah.
Do all at once.
Right. Is that okay? You all?
I think so. That's not who I'm supposed to vote for.
Okay. Well.
Well, you don't have to vote for it.
Yeah. So, well, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No, yes. I'm opposed.
No, yes. No, yes.
No, I am opposed.
Start right in. Did she vote against it?
Voted.
Okay.
We're still good enough.
Great, Tony, you got that. So that gives us our 2 new members. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you applying. Now we have 3 positions open in March. So that's another opportunity to get on the committee. You could run for one of the 3 positions that came up in March, and we appreciate you offering to help us out. So I don't think anybody else is here.
Can we have these 2 sworn in so they can sit in on this meeting?
Yeah.
That is why our efficient town clerk is here.
Perfect.
So Elizabeth and Frank, if you could, Tony's making out the paperwork. Should we take a recess for a couple minutes while you know? Great, okay, so now we have the budget book, so we're going to start in the first page for our November 8th meeting. We're going to start with the election registration vital statistics, and that's under the general government tab in the book, and page 2. And Valerie's here to answer any questions that we have about it.
For the people that are new here, see the tabs there and then you change the numbers. So we switch back and forth. We don't go through consecutively.
Right. And then there's a lot of other information. There's in places you'll find a lot of supporting information on the pages right after, so they'll be relevant to the first page anyway. So it's a pretty good system. So then we got the ballot waivers. That's down a little bit because we don't have as many elections elections, that happens every couple of years right now, because we, right, that's obviously based on that.
Do we do a preserve a record book every year?
Yes, 1 year.
I thought. I take it we haven't paid for it yet this year, right?
That's correct. It's out right now, so I think it takes about 12 weeks.
This explanation is helpful.
Yeah.
Keep track of them all. So, the bottom line, I'm sorry,
That's it, okay.
the bottom line is $103,449. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Move the line.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
That was easy, Valerie.
Can we reach
Yes, no.
We no longer have to just go.
Right. Yeah, he's gone. Sorry about that. Okay. Parks and Recreation, Wayne's here. Community Services, page 1.
What, can I ask the selectmen why they reduced it by $7,000?
Oh, that was the 430 line?
Yeah.
Right.
So the Parks and Rec director and I had spoken all year about bringing in beach sand at the beach across from the public safety building. If any of you've been in there recently, it's more kind of like glacial till than like a sandy beach, and there's a lot of rocks that need to be dug up. So I had my building department look into what it required for a wetlands permit. It's too much tonnage or yardage for a expedited wetlands permit. We need a full permit, which is $2,000. And then we will need to do a perched beach, which means we have to put some kind of railroad tie or garden, like garden landscaping, you know, that rubberized to keep the sand from going into the water. So it has to be a perched beach. It needs more tonnage than a mitigated permit will allow. So it's $2,000 for the permit, and we're estimating $7,000 for the sand. The Board of Selectmen cut it by $7,000 and are only allowing them to get the permit this year and hopefully get the sand in 2020.
Okay. It'll probably take all year to get the permit anyway. Well, I didn't say that, did I?
Yeah.
Similar question, reduction on the program level between what the FOP asked for and what the selectmen have recommended.
That was a misprint on 481.
Yeah, 680, 680.
681, that was a misprint.
I know it.
That $9,000 should have been in that was taken out.
Oh, okay.
That was for the beach, and it was in both spots.
Oh,
It should have been.
Good try, Wayne.
Okay, so, selectmen's line on that is $169,293. The Crackman is $185,293, so,
Less than 9,000.
what's that?
Less than 9,000.
Right.
I'll move the line, 169, 293.
A second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Town Hall Annex, General Government, page 8. quite a change in the price of oil from last year, huh? Yeah. 75, 80 cents a gallon. Now with the repairs and now the department head was $3,000. Let me look at my,
Yeah.
is it on here?
No.
There's kind of a discrepancy there. The department head wanted 75, the selectmen recommended 4,500.
It looks like they took out finishing the garage spaces.
What's that, Howard?
It looks, I'm asking Denny, did they take out the finished garage spaces of play area for $3,000?
Can I speak to that?
Yeah.
We decided to reduce that line, and with the difference being that we would get hopefully the volunteers to help do the painting and save that money there, and then be able to do some of the other work that we have, that we can do now with that money, so that number didn't need to be that high.
Okay, so you're still gonna be able to work with the garage?
Yes, yeah, for the winter time, it's just housing the bus anyways, so.
But in the summertime,
In the summertime.
on a rainy summer day, trying to get 50 kids in your space doesn't work.
Right, yeah. And the front of the building is the worst when it comes to the painting, that gets the beat from the sun, so I talked to the Wakefield volunteers, and they've already said, if they straight it out paint, I'm all for that.
Yeah, I think
But they're willing to help, I talked to them actually this morning, so.
okay.
That was pretty good service.
Are the dugouts in here, Wayne?
Excuse me?
Are the dugouts in?
No, that's on the other one, the facility right there.
Okay.
Any of the dugouts that we would have to repair or replace.
Right, but did budget for it?
No, that was on the CIP.
Okay. Oh, warrant article, okay.
Too many things here to
Yeah.
keep track of. Anyway. Okay, great. Any more questions on the town hall annex?
Moving along,
How much we got?
just turn the page.
Oh, well, we got 16, the selectmen recommend $16,421.
That's all.
Okay, we have
Second.
motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Sewer budget, page 1. That's kind of toward the back, it's the second to the last tab in the book, for the sewer tab, and then it's in a couple different sections on that page. Everybody find it right?
What do we do with the 6,000 professional engineer? On the sewer, what do we do with the $6,000 for the professional engineering?
That was for, best practices, trying to get it set up for some things coming down in the future for the wastewater plant.
Just in case anybody doesn't know, that's Brock Mitchell, he's our new Department of Public Works Director, and Seth Garland, right, the mechanic.
Yep.
For them, so.
Dynamic duo. We have a lot more maintenance this year than we had last year, in terms, because we haven't spent anything today.
This is one area that has been neglected for a long time, and we're doing a lot of catch-up. We have a lot of meetings with Brock to find out what we had to do, and we're trying to avoid any failures down there, which would be catastrophic. So we have some big dollar items, but we spent a lot of time reviewing them with Brock's help, and the other thing we're doing right now, I don't know if you know it, but we have to buy a generator, and it's a three-phase generator. Power goes out, we have like 2 days, and then we're overflowing. So
That's not,
I know the numbers are high, but in our view, they're absolutely necessary to keep that system running.
Right, and the other part about keeping that system running too is because we don't want to wind up having to build a multi-million-dollar wastewater treatment facility. So I mean, you could, I don't know, you could spend $10–12 million on a facility to
Correct.
treat that. So I mean,
And the adjustments that we're making are ones that are catastrophic in nature if they would have failed.
Yeah.
So it's not for just lack of throwing money at something, it means it.
right.
Just as the budget committee is prepared, this bottom line budget probably will be overexpended. So as you may recall, Fund 2 is funded from rate, not from taxpayers. So there's about $200,000 in unassigned fund balance separate from the general fund in this Fund 2 that has not been expended, that came from the ratepayers. So we have to expense it in this operating budget, but things like the generator that weren't properly budgeted for, but our emergency maintenance items will show up in this budget. It's been ordered but not paid for yet. We had a cake in the tank that goes before the wet well. So we had our 3 regular pumpings, which we had budgeted for, but there was another $4,000 or $5,000 getting that cake out. So there's going to be some emergency things that are done. There's some piping that needs to be replaced in the wet well, and we're proposing a couple of new submersible pumps. And these aren't like some pumps in your basement. These are big submersible, $5,000 or $6,000 pumps. We need to replace a couple of those next year. So this bottom line budget will be overexpended, but the money will come from the money already raised by the ratepayers. And then in addition to that, there's additional monies available to us if necessary in the capital reserve fund. We'll probably continue to fund that every year for emergency repairs or expansion of the system. But part of the engineering is what we have to do. We have to do certain testing before we can spread the sludge, but then we're required to spread that sludge. And so there's reporting to DES that the engineer that is included in that $6,000 engineering. But then in addition to that, we're trying to figure out what is left in the system. We haven't had that evaluated in almost 5 years. And then again, the best practices to make sure that we're not just doing the bare minimum to keep from having a plant, but we're doing best practices going forward so that we can stave that off for as long as humanly possible.
So you would just be able to transfer money from Fund 2 to offset
It's
any
in
of
there all the
Yeah.
time. That's where, this is where it gets expensed and reported to the auditors though. So it will appear to be overexpended, but that Fund 2 has $200,000 in unassigned fund balance.
Great, thank you.
There was a lot of work on monitoring wells and stuff too. Page 2.
And I tell you, we're lucky to have Brock here. That's one of the first things we assigned him to is to investigate that plant over there. Thank God he's with us.
So the bottom line, if I'm reading that right, is 102,450. Both, the summary of both pages.
Yes.
Move along.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So 102,450 right now.
Yep. Staying with Ron.
Town maintenance and highway, still blocks department. Public works, page 1 and 2. So one of those trucks ready over at Donovan's?
We were supposed to have one today, but it didn't get moved. Got moved one day to paint. So supposedly we'll have it tomorrow, and then the other one will be the following week.
Oh, okay. Now, the only reason I asked is because Dave Magnus and Howie Knight and I are the trustees of the trust fund, and we had an email the other day looking for the
I made
200
requested the money to pay the bill.
requested the money, so
Well,
hopefully
we can't, if we don't pay the bill, they won't release it, so we can't register it or insure it.
Yeah.
So
But
hard to go get it if you can't.
But I knew when I talked to you, you were hoping to get the work of that
Yeah.
sometime in the beginning of November, so I guess it
And
may.
knock on wood, the vendor's been very, very good as far as actually being somewhat on time with these. So,
They got any, do they have the other, second one over there now?
yeah, it's in the shop right now.
Oh,
It went, the first one was going to paint, and the second one was coming in to get body.
oh, nice.
Just before it happens.
Shouldn't get sidetracked, sorry about that. Okay. Now, some chemicals is up a little bit, I mean, is that just a rate increase of price?
Yeah, it's anticipating that we're gonna be close as far as filling the shed back up this year. So I don't wanna have that problem next fall when we gotta fill it up this time of year.
Right. Now, you guys all understand down there?
Yeah, we've been hauling sand, and I've got some, they're gonna start hauling gravel, and, hopefully next week they said, so.
So the mowing's a new item, right?
I'm sorry.
The mowing, outside, hiring outside mower?
Yep.
And I had talked to Brock about that one, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks ago, and what happened was that roadside mower that we got a while back wasn't really suitable for what they needed, and what they really needed was to spend $150,000, $200,000 on a mower that will reach to do what needs to be mowed, and so I think I was correct when Brock said that it's better to hire it out for now instead of making a
Spending
huge
$300,000
expenditure.
on a tractor when we can hire it out.
Yeah.
Take a few years to get up there.
Yeah, take quite a few years. That's why you won't have to worry about it.
The first initial cut's gonna be a little spendy, but after that, maintaining it's not gonna be a big deal.
What?
I'll move to 165.
A second.
Motion and second?
65,000.
All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed?
I'm going to abstain since I wasn't here for the conversation.
Go ahead, what?
I said I'm going to abstain since I wasn't here for most of the conversation.
Okay. You got your budget book and...
Thank you.
Page 2.
Oh, I'm sorry, we're going to look at page 2 now, Dave, on Public Works. Still on Public Works.
Yeah. I guess I'm a little confused on telephone, the line 341. It says in cable TV. Do you have cable TV?
We do, so they can watch the storms during plowing operations, and then we added one additional cell phone. Only the DPW director had the stipend, so we don't pay for the full cell phone. We pay $30 a month stipend for his cell phone, and we added the foreman this year because we went so long without a DPW director, so they both receive the $30 a month stipend.
Okay, okay, we got internet down there too. I was just wondering if that was double up, I don't know. Because you can have a few lines, 631, you get internet for 960. So, for one's TV, so they can watch it live.
I thought when we did the franchise agreement with Time Warner Cable, we were going to have cable hooked up to town buildings for free. Did they go on and laugh?
Is that Time Warner, or was that 3 companies ago?
And so Time Warner's cable is null and their contract is null and void now, so. Gee, we spent so much time on that.
We fight with them periodically about, they changed all our bills from 2 High Street, San Bernardino, to 2 High Street, Wakefield. And then when Michelle tried to straighten it out, all of our bills, and some of our residents' bills as well, and when we called them, they said that somebody must have asked them to do it, and argued with us to the point where I had to make Michelle hang up, and we had to call the government office and have them help it up because, and I'm not even sure it's fixed now, it's been a month.
Wow.
And the residents are like, I never called and change my address. I've lived here 35. Somebody globally changed the zip code, and then, so everything, and you know how the post office feels about Wakefield 03872.
Well, I mean, they send stuff to the wrong place, is what winds up happening, it's not
Yeah,
a
and
big
then they
mystery.
shut your bill off because you didn't get your bill.
Yeah.
Or shut your service off because you didn't get your bill.
Wow.
But they say you asked to have it changed. Like, it's the town hall, it's been here 100 years, we didn't move. You must have moved. No, we didn't.
Yeah. Sometimes. Anyway, so we have two different, we have $499 for the department, and we have $447 for the select board. I thought I had picked that up, but maybe I didn't.
Yeah, it's under associations.
There's one difference.
Versus computer maintenance, 45,000 versus 1,000.
So we need 2 new repeaters and 6 new digital radios, and originally Rock had included in his operating budget, and the board of selectmen have moved it into a warrant article
Warrant,
because of
okay,
because it's a one-time.
That's where it was.
big-
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's-
so we just, it's not a mistake, we just moved it to a different place.
You know, I'm wondering if we, not only warrant articles, then maybe we ought to think about, at some point in 5 years, 6 years from now, we have to replace them, should we set up a trust fund?
Yeah, I was thinking of that. Are these repeaters?
Because we bought repeaters about 8 years ago.
Yeah, and we just bought them, the police department just had to change the repeater on the tower. So it is a recurring bill.
But, you know, in a
Yeah.
time frame that I think would warrant a capital reserve fund.
Well, that would fall under technology. Don't we have a technology capital reserve fund?
Well, I don't know if
Would that be?
We'd have to check the wording on that, Jerry,
Yeah,
because
I'm not sure.
I think it'd be too, I don't think it would include repeaters the way it's worded, but
Yeah.
we could read it.
We can look at it.
I didn't know if it was just technology for the town hall or if it was for the entire,
It's for the entire town because it covers, it has in the past covered the computer hardware for the police department
right.
and the town hall. It's just, it might cover, I'm not sure, I have to look at the language, but it might cover the upgrade from analog to digital, because that is clearly on the radio part a technology piece. And if the repeaters are new repeaters are necessary because the old ones were analog and the new ones are digital, then it is an upgrade in technology, but it depends on how it was written, and I'd have to take a look at it.
We could always vote to change it and expand it. I mean, it'd be a little easier than having another fund.
Yeah, I think that's
Pete, did you have a question?
Yeah, wanted to bump up to the equipment maintenance and also to the tools line on this budget. On the equipment maintenance, if I'm on the right page, I just want to make sure. They're asking for $18,000.
Yeah.
They expended up to date $9,700. The year 2017, they actually spent $8,900. So I'm wondering why the extra $10,000. And the other question I have in regards to this is, what's the benchmark on monitoring when a tool or needs to be replaced? You've got tools replacement here, $4,000. Is there an inventory kept down there at the highway department of the tools?
That would be,
There is for some of the larger items, like chainsaws and stuff like that, but as far as our hand tools right now, we
You can get into these little bench tool boxes there, and you can get thousands of dollars into there.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering why those aren't inventoried and the money isn't being appropriated based on the need for replacing that equipment.
well, some of that, the new tool stuff is technology that's used to look at to update the programs that we use for the computer systems that we use to look at the machines and see what's wrong with them.
But how do we know what's happening with the rest of the tools as far as wear and tear goes? I mean, you don't have a life expectancy like some of this
It's
stuff?
not something that I'm 2 months into it, it's not something that I've had other things going on, so I really haven't had time to get into wrenches and whatnot.
So that's just my concerns on that. I'm seeing that, I'm seeing a large expenditure or asking for $18,000, which is $10,000 more than you've used both years.
Except you notice, Pete, that they're moving $7,000 from miscellaneous, from Blaze. They removed some of the funds from one line to another.
Okay.
I took funds that were in one line and just added them to maintenance for plow blades and whatnot, which are $2,200 to $2,500 each.
Yeah, no, I understand, yeah.
So that makes up some of the difference.
Okay.
Makes it up about $3,000.
Yeah.
Thank you, Howard.
Yeah.
So the loader and the excavator are now brand new, right? So
Yeah.
they're in this, but I mean, they shouldn't really,
Right, and that was kind of why I took some of the money away, but we do still have a grader that's 30 years old, that if something happens, we still need to be able to afford to repair it. And whether it's 30 years old or brand new, if something goes wrong, it's still very expensive to fix.
right.
So,
Now, you guys, are you burning a lot of wood down there now with that outside? Is that working?
24 to year.
And we burn on average 24 a year. And it makes a huge difference in the quality of heat in that garage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You're not buying this wood, right? You're using this wood roadside?
We do, if we do use the wood, if we get good pieces of outside road, we lately what's been falling down is dry.
I could learn to shut up here because I just.
I can't keep you from here.
Well, no, I don't know. The reason
what
we
he
bought
said.
that wood burning unit years ago was to supplement the oil, not to overtake it. And it got to the point where the crew down there was spending more time splitting wood, and it was spending more on buying wood than it would have cost for oil. And it was supposed to supplement the oil, not overtake it. And we were supposed to use the wood from roadside, which we were getting for free,
Right.
to do that. And this was something when I was on the budget committee in the town. Like I said, I probably should shut up because I'm
You
getting
were
too many flashbacks.
You were slugging to put it in.
Yeah, that was your idea.
That was your
So
idea.
It was my idea.
I don't think
Exactly, it was my idea for the
Just let that
purpose of
slide.
supplementing the oil.
Now we're paying for that idea, so.
Yeah, but
You know,
oil is
the point-
expensive now.
The point is, you don't have to pay for that idea. All you have to do is use common sense.
Yeah.
You use the roadside wood, you buy the oil.
Well, I think that, I mean, talking with Brock and those guys down there, I think that they would realize where the tipping point was, where it was, you know, not being cost effective for, you know what I mean, to, you know, if the wood is being more expensive than oil, I mean, I think that obviously
Just saying.
I personally.
Hey, Pete, you be in the forest, or maybe you can find us some free wood someplace, huh?
I can find lots of wood around this town if you want me to.
I see people online that are having trouble buying seasoned cordwood. I don't know if there's a shortage of it or, but it seems like people.
No, but the whole going back to it is the point of that wood stove was not to
Right,
be a primary source, it was a supplement.
yeah.
Pete, remember we had a study about 3 years ago, and they said we were burning too much wood? It would be cheaper to burn oil, and 'cause we were heating almost we were cutting and splitting wood, and that whoever it was that did that survey, remember that, Jerry? They said, cut back on the wood, just heat the thing.
Right, the MRI study.
Yeah, well, because I mean, there was a point when oil was almost $4 a gallon a few years ago. I mean,
Yeah.
three and a half, four, almost $5.
Well,
a
the
gallon.
point of it was that more labor was going into
Yeah.
tending the wood.
I have a question on electricity, not necessarily here, but
Sorry,
when
guys.
I was at the school board meeting the other night, somebody mentioned, maybe you can tell, that electricity is gonna jump like 25%. 20%?
We read that on for Eversource, but that's for this year.
So that, I mean, I've noticed you increased yours by 5%. So I don't know, this is what, I forget who said that.
It was announced like in the summertime or so that the bills were going to go up 20% for the state of New Hampshire.
We heard that was in July, public service, ever supposed
But I don't know if that's, I don't know if you use.
Well, you know, public service might have been raising their rates, but most people aren't buying their electricity from public service. They're buying it from the secondary suppliers, and they're pretty competitive compared to public service.
What's the town doing though, Denny? Are we still buying from Eversource?
We are buying it from Eversource. I did a comparison and there was not enough savings with a secondary source. The savings wasn't enough for us to switch, and there's issues with those secondary sources as well that I don't really want to get into.
But you haven't heard anything about an increase of 20% for
No,
Eversource,
we-
right?
No, I wasn't notified.
I think,
I heard about it.
I think those secondary markets are they only work for a little while when the price spikes, and once the power company gets it figured out, I mean, it's.
Well, the biggest problem too is for like our welfare clients. It's very attractive to save 20% on your supply, but at the end of the day, Eversource has that neighbor helping neighbor fund, and first. And that hurts the low income, you know, if you save 20% on your supply part of your bill, but if you are unable to pay your bill, you get shut off sooner because you don't have any of the protections except on the demand side that Eversource can extend to you. So that was in the small print apparently when people went to those, and a lot of welfare clients were hurt by that.
Well, and I think there are laws that in certain times of the year, they can't shut someone's power
Not
off
anymore.
because of health and safety.
So the secondary sources don't have that at all.
They
They're
don't,
not under the PUC, and Eversource has carved that out. It used to be you couldn't shut anybody's electricity off between December and April 10th. You couldn't shut off if they were over 65, if they had a child under 5. The only thing that they have not been able to carve out yet is the medical need piece. If you're on oxygen or dialysis, you're still protected. But if that person passes, then the bill comes back and people have lost their homes because of that. There's no lifetime safety from that. So since public service sold out to Eversource, it has changed considerably.
Thank you. Any more questions on this section?
Down 3,000 from last year. I'll move to 447,503.
A second.
Motion and second, all in favor? Any opposed? Maintenance highway, public works, page 3, solid waste disposal. Thanks for that. Great. Still Brooks.
They came on the transmission, as I noticed. Transmission on the loader.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, if that transmission fails, Brock and I were talking about it, the transmission is about twice the value of the loader.
Yeah.
You know, you hate to put a $25,000 transmission in a $12,000 loader. So if that fails, and we only have, what, 2 years in it now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was kind of, we're on borrowed time, and hopefully it's gonna make it through the calendar year, but if it doesn't, we'll get a problem down at the transfer station.
We'll get a brand new one at the highway garage.
Yeah, I don't think he wants to give it up though, right?
We use it every day, so.
Yeah. What if there'd be an option to lease any of that equipment, or if we're better off buying it?
Is that the one that's missing first or third gear?
Is that-
But it's okay.
But it's,
You guys, as a board, did you watch the last selectmen's meeting? We are having a real issue with disposing of the recyclables down there. Nobody is buying paper and nobody is buying plastic, right?
And the price of metals is down.
Yeah, so we literally, we're separating it because we think we should continue. If we've got most of the public trained, and if the price comes back, then they're used to separating it, but we have to just haul it away. We can't sell it. There's no market.
right now it's costing us money to recycle.
Right.
There's no market for any of the plastic. There's no market, like paper is, the market's gone. We had a meeting with Waste Management, they said they come back at some point, nobody knows when.
Yeah.
So they kind of had so now it's actually costing us money to haul it out, that's what the increases are. It's not just paying for itself, so to speak, and actually making a little money. Now it's costing us money to get rid of it.
Right.
I actually had stopped taking glass from other towns because we can't get rid of it. And now they've gone to a different class of glass, so we got a mountain of glass in it, we can't get rid of it, we have to start a whole separate pile of glass for the new specs. So it's, I mean, we get rid of it as much as we can where we can, but you've got, you can haul out of there for a week straight, not run out of lights.
Are you hauling your recyclables out with your regular trash? Or is it a
Not at
separate?
this time, it's still being recycled.
And is it costing you more than if you put it with the regular trash?
We're still up in the air on contracts. It's in negotiations, so I can figure out where we're gonna be.
Okay.
Some things, like plastic, right now we're augering it, but augering it doesn't compact it like the compactor would, so it's actually taking up more space, so it is kind of more expensive. And then paper, the only thing there's a market for is cardboard, and only if we bale it, and we don't have a baler. So there's no market for any of our mixed paper. And so that was part of the conversation that we were having with the Board of Selectmen, is whether we should continue to let people recycle, and then when they leave, just dump it in the compactor, so that we're not paying more. But we want to make sure that we're disclosing that to the public, because it's not a sneaky thing and we're just lazy. We want them to keep recycling in case the market comes back, and it's a good habit to be into. But to be realistic about it, at some point we probably will have to put it in the solid waste stream, because there's just no market for the way we can deliver it.
Why not look into a baler? We've been talking about this for about 10 years in itself. About time for a capital reserve maybe to put towards a baler or something?
There's
We
no,
have a capital reserve fund,
Yeah,
heavy
we have
equipment.
a building.
you have to have a building to keep the paper dry, you have to buy the baler, and then you have to still have a market for it. And even baler, there's only a market for cardboard, there's no market for the regular paper. So probably now is not the time. If the market, like he says, if it starts to come back in the next year or so, I've talked to Brock about, and I was successful with this at a couple of other transfer stations and other towns I worked in. There's grants where you can get a 50% grant for a baler, and those grants are especially attractive if you share them with another town. And with us being small, we might be able to use the baler for a couple of days, and if we put it on a trailer, maybe share it with Milton or Middleton or some other town that didn't have a baler, and get, bang for our buck and get a 50% grant. But there's just no market right now, and it would be worth doing, because we need to build the building to keep everything dry, and then purchase the baler, and then still not be able to sell the majority of the paper we take in.
Well, when the market's down, that's the time to buy equipment, because that's when everybody's selling it for cheap. That's what I found over time. But anyway, that's a story for another day.
Well, Pete, some of the issues you run into, unless you have a really good crystal ball, I mean, you can go to the expense of putting up a metal building and buying a baler and separating out the paper and the cardboard, and then 3 years into it, the market goes away, and you spend all that money and you're not going to get it back. So, it's a tough decision for a town to make.
Well, I feel like I should be on that side, because I also put in for that building that's down at the transfer station many years ago.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be to put the equipment in to keep it out of the weather, so the tires didn't get dry rot and things didn't happen.
Yeah.
Now the tires sit outside, the junk goes inside, so, who knows? I mean, what's wrong with that building?
Well, it's not big enough to pay the fee.
Huh?
Not when you put the equipment in it. And Brock is down there looking at it right now. We had a skid steer that hadn't been fixed for years. He just got that back on the road, so.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying, Dennis, and I don't disagree, but I'm just saying I see some things that I've watched over the
Yeah.
years, and that building should be better used.
Yeah.
Now, when this kind of makes me think about expenses and stuff, how often do we revisit the contract we have with Brookfield for things like the transfer station and stuff? I mean, if it's gonna start costing us more money to get rid of these recyclables.
We have a flat rate with them, Jerry, and before, and it was an absolute nightmare. We used to actually go in on how much for police and how much for fire, and then they come back and say, well, we had less calls this year than we had last year. So we just went to a flat rate.
Okay.
And it's been that way for, Tony, how many years? Do you ever, Kelly, Connie, how many years? Is it? Yeah. Yeah, and it's a flat rate, and they think it's too much, and we don't think it's enough, so.
Right.
Well,
I mean, it seems like with inflation and things,
it's a percentage here.
It's based on their population, so if our population goes down or theirs goes up in comparison to it, I check with the Office of State Planning every year before I do it. It stayed around 12%. So we get 12% of those budgets. So when we hired the 3 new firefighters and that budget went up $300,000, they paid their 12% of that plus 10% of the 12% as an administrative fee for the work that I do. Because when I first came here, I got many visits from Brookfield selectmen. And when I asked them, doesn't your office have this information? They said, yeah, but we don't have a full-time AA, and you're here every day. So that we explain it to them, and we keep track of it, and we bill them monthly or quarterly.
It's not a flat rate, it's a percentage.
So we're getting,
Percent.
we do
Yeah,
get.
as our
we do
budget
get-
escalates,
get
we
that
get
increase.
12%.
Yeah, if our budget goes up, they pay a higher rate,
Okay.
on the percentage. So
I mean,
Yeah, it went up $86,000 last year, and they were.
Well, I mean, it's still probably a pretty good deal for that.
Yeah, I mean, when the
Yeah,
select-
by the time you figure how much it would cost.
Right, the chairman of the board of selectmen said it was a bargain at any price, because to start a police department and cruisers and a building and a fire department and apparatus and manpower and a transfer station and, you know, I think generally they understand. I think it's just difficult when prices escalate and, you know, they also are part of Kingswood School District, so they don't have a lot of, they don't feel like they have a lot of say in some of these, and so they question it and look at it, and I'm okay with that. I don't mind explaining it to them.
Well, I mean, it's adjustable anyway, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question on the uniforms. $800 each?
Paul? Roger?
So we've been using a uniform company, and last year they tried to get us to sign a 3-year contract. The contract includes that if we terminate our contract with them, we will pay them 70% of anything remaining on the contract. And if you've ever had a chance to look at their uniforms, they're like roadkill. They charge us $60 to replace a shirt when it gets stained with oil or torn, or they charge us, I don't even know, to sew on the patches. So Brockett, I had started this last year with the previous DPW director. I would not sign that contract, and I took it to the board of selectmen, and I strongly suggested they not sign it. So we looked into, you know, providing them with 5 pairs of jeans and 5 short sleeve shirts and 5 long sleeve shirts, and then, you know, purchasing the steel toe boots they need. And we believe that it will be cheaper for us to manage it that way. This first year, they need everything. As time goes on, they'll probably have some things that, you know, stay from year to year, but I'd much rather pay them to buy what they need and let them, you know, throw it away when it's torn, replace the jacket if it gets stained, than to pay a uniform company for these uniforms that look
Well, you answered my question on how many. I
horrendous.
wondered how many sets they had, so,
Yeah.
does that make sense? I'm gonna move the 457, 303.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? Right at the top of the page, I guess we could go to street lighting. This is always a big one.
Oh, yeah. Hasn't changed in I don't know how many years.
Move the line.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
1,000. Any opposed?
Nice job, guys.
Thanks, Bob, appreciate it. Thanks for coming in. Cemeteries, general government tab, page 9. Yeah, page 9, under the general government tab. So Phil came in to answer our questions on the cemetery.
Same as last year.
Yeah.
Software still working out good? Took a while to get it up, or
Same as last year, I moved that line.
second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That was quick.
Aren't you glad you came?
Well, guess you spent a little time with the lady Yes.
I just want to clarify, especially for the board member. I can't hear, obviously, each individual person. I'm assuming you're voting yes unless you vote no. Okay. All right.
Now, General Government, the Heritage Commission, everybody got the email, we're gonna move that, Pam on that, move to Saturday, so she can do that with the, I guess everybody was okay with that, so. General Government Assessing Operations, page 5, General Government, page 5. And, just for the two new members, what happened was Pam Judge from, Pam Wiggin from the, Heritage Commission was gonna come in and do the library and Heritage. She wanted them on the same days, obviously, so I had sent out an email to everybody and let them know that we were gonna make that change. We'll have that on Saturday, so.
You want to make sure you get the two new members email too.
Yes, I already have them.
Are you?
Yes, and they answer me.
Wow.
I'm like,
They don't know you well enough.
well, I know, little better out there. I know what happens, I know that.
So we moved the legal to this line, which makes a lot of sense.
So I asked the assessors to consider putting some legal in their budget so we can try to account for where the legal is really being spent. I tracked it all year last year, and then I've tracked it year to date this year. It came out to be, I think, $1,700 or $1,800 last year. It's tracking a little less than that year to date this year. And obviously, once something becomes litigation, like Dollar General, might be a land use issue in the beginning. We have some, calls between the town attorney, and I would track that in the land use budget. But then if they litigate, it comes into the regular legal budget. So I'm just trying to.
Well, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep track of where the legal expenses really are, and I didn't want you to think that, I was moving. We actually started out with 3,000. The Board of Selectmen cut it down to 2,500, and I think I've only taken 2,000 out of the legal because I think we're going to overspend by a pinch this year. But like I said, I just want to kind of account for it more accurately and where it's being expended.
Yeah, it's the first time we've done that, and we're comfortable with this.
Yeah. I think that's where it should be, especially this year.
Yeah, and Cindy Bickford's on vacation this week, so Mrs. Stewart is here. She's an assessor. If you guys have questions that Denny or I can't answer, she'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you for coming in.
You're welcome.
I'll move the 135,012.
A second.
Get a motion, a second? All in favor?
Aye.
No. General Government, Executive General Government, page 1.
Just out of curiosity, do the selectmen get 1099s on their statement?
I think we get W-2s, don't we?
We get W2.
W2s?
Yeah.
Also, you do a Holman?
Right.
Yeah. Just curious.
So the salary increases, those are just regular, those are the scheduled.
The part-time
Change.
executive assistant, if you see the little cheat sheet, there's an additional 320 hours. So it's eight hours a week times 52 weeks is 320 hours at $5,619. So, right now we have an executive assistant that works Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. She covers selectmen's meetings and budget. She works extra hours during budget time, both for me and for the budget committee, which is budget under the budget committee.
Mm-hmm.
This would be an additional 1 day a week.
Okay.
So I'm slowly trying to get a full-time administrative assistant and not get rid of Tony. Tony has to stay. He has to stay, and we're just supplementing them.
knows where all the skeletons
But I'm
are.
trying to
Nobody's gonna get rid of Tony.
I'm just trying to slowly over time get that to 40 hours because it is hard when, if Michelle and Tony are both out, then I'm answering phones, greeting the public, and doing town administrative stuff. And so just to have that clerical support 5 days a week is important.
Yeah, well, I mean, and of course, we're only supposed to discuss the position of the person and all that stuff, but I'm sure that everybody knows she does a great job for us, so.
And she also has to support other committees, like
Right.
the trustees of the trust fund.
Yeah, we've passed
Yeah, and periodically during the year like this year, we were without a minutes secretary for the planning board, zoning board, and conservation commission for a few weeks, and her and I split those boards up. And our minutes secretary for those boards has resigned again, she'll be done at the end of the month, so I think we've had one person apply, but you know, when there's openings in that gets just fluffed around the office and we have to pick up the slack, so.
Frankly, you have to have the minutes, no matter whether you have someone in that position or not. So
Within 5
you have
days.
5 days to have them ready.
Yes.
Too many things going on one time.
Everybody's moving around. I don't know. It's like, I don't know. Anybody have any more questions on this executive?
A question, are you trying to add a full person 5 days or just a person to fill the void of the Monday
So
through Friday?
I'm keeping the person that's currently in position, she's averaging around 30 hours a week, and then I'm putting one more person at a lower rate.
Full time?
No, just 1 day a
Just 1
week.
day.
Okay. 8 more hours, and then probably next year I'll do the other 8 hours. So eventually I will probably have 2 people, one work a little more than 3 days a week, and one working 2 days a week when she's off at a lower rate, to just kind of get that 40 hours. And it won't be a full-time, so it won't have the health insurance, New Hampshire retirement, things like that.
Just for a little bit of history, I've been in this town for 25 years, and we have the identical staff downstairs we did when I moved in here. It has not changed in 25 years. So you can see everything going on little by little. We need help on that.
And here's what I'll say too, if it wasn't Tony filling that position with as efficient and as professional and everything she knows about this, done it for 20 plus years, we couldn't do it with 3 days a week. It probably would take a person and a half to do what she can get done in 30 hours. So it's really a testament to the fact that she's stuck it out with us for 25 years and knows what she's doing.
Your face right here.
I don't go to selectmen's meetings much, but I think maybe a selectmen's letter of appreciation might be
I think that's a great idea. You could recommend that.
If you can keep a selectmen's board together long enough to vote on it.
Yeah, I hear you.
I hear you.
One of the sitting selectmen called it quitter number 1 and quitter number 2.
That's probably rude, but it's late, and so.
I make a motion to move the 148, 975.
We have a motion and a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
This just makes it easier for Tony if just 2 of us are doing this.
Yeah. Town Hall Building, General Government, page 8. Same section, back to page 8. Let's see. Top of the page.
So cleaning the clock, is that something new?
Yes, Mark Duffy actually just approached me a couple of days ago and said, he reminded me that a couple of years ago he had spoken to Teresa about that, gotten a price from a clockmaker who's going to take it all apart, clean it all, lube it, put it all back together for us, and it was $1,100. He pinged him again by email, and then he got back to us and said he would do it for us for $1,300. I don't know the last time it was done, and obviously, you know, it's not open to the weather up there, but it is, you know, moving parts, and I think the better care we take of it, and believe it or not, whenever that clock is wrong, I get, we need to keep that clock running and running in good order, because I get
No
phone
doubt.
calls.
There'd probably be something on Facebook about it too.
Oh, Facebook, what?
Mark does a good job of it too.
He does. He's
Is he
right
training
now.
anybody else?
I don't know.
No? Just in case he can't do it, to have somebody.
There is somebody else that will do it.
Fred did it.
Oh, yeah, Fred did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like most of the increases in the repair.
Yeah.
100-year-old building, I guess, you have to expect to have a.
Yeah.
I noticed the windows, we're replacing the windows in here now, is that?
So that was the part, so we originally got a Moose grant plate, and we thought we did about half of the windows, and then we got an L-chip grant that people thought was going to be, Teresa got it before I came, and so I'm finishing up that L-chip grant. Unfortunately, the quote I got for the rest of the windows was $92,000, and we only raised 48, so we're only getting half of the half that we thought was done. So we're still going to have probably $50,000 worth of windows to be completed. I'm going to take a year off from windows and see if we can get our ducks in a row and either find another grant or start a capital reserve fund, for the town hall improvements and start putting some money away in there and finish them up. But yeah, we have quite a few windows taken out right now. They're going to bring most of them back before winter. The part that can't be done until spring is my double front door, because they have to do that in place. I frowned when they told me they wanted to put plywood doors in place and take my door. You have plywood doors on the town hall, but thanks. So they're going to come back in the spring and finish up the double doors in the front. And I got an extension from the L-chip grant for that, to just wait until spring when they can finish up the double doors. But the rest should be done before snow flies. Well,
Yeah, but I think those doors down there outlived their usefulness.
Still good.
I'm sorry?
It's still good.
Geez, I came by one Sunday, one of them was open, it was locked, but it was flopping in the breeze. I mean,
You
it's-
must pick up somebody and then shut it back.
then I guess we better get after some people.
it's like wrestling a bear, when that door comes out of that little hole, it's like bear wrestling to get it. Like I put my shoulder in it and get, what the hell? I'm trying to shut a door, not wrestle bear here.
You have to call the Department of Public Works to come up and close the door.
We'll go on for 55,550.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the last one, general government, next page, page 9 for insurance. And a lot of these we don't really have much, leeway on because they're all,
I say we're up $4,000, but if you look at 2017's actual, we're still $4,000 less than we were in 2017. And if you remember, we had gone to Travelers for 1 year, and that didn't work out so good for us. They had a higher they had a $5,000 deductible instead of a $1,000 deductible, and so we really couldn't budget well. And so we went back to New Hampshire Municipal Association's local government center and bought it from them again. We're buying it from Climax again. So now it's a set amount, and it's a little more than last year, but it's still less than what we paid Travelers in 2017. So I was pretty happy with that.
Move the line.
Second.
motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
And that was 103,163, right? Okay. That brings us to, no, that's not wrong. That brings us to the bottom of our sheet here, so I think we did pretty good there.
I gotta tell you, doing this makes a big difference, Kelly.
Great, Kelly.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I just finished the one for Saturday.
And it matched all my circles.
If you guys didn't like it.
We got another meeting on Saturday. It's kind of, it's like three kind of right in a row, and then we'll have a couple at the school, like at the end of November. Kind of, it was messed up, like the season.
At least they're not overlapping each other.
Well, no, that's good.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of September
Fifth, I'll second.
Motion say all in favor?
Aye.
Pete, you want to
I'm
abstain?
I'm going to abstain from that one since I
Okay.
wasn't.
Those two for the same.
2, 4, 5.
So we can approve probably two.
Three. Excellent.
So it's probably 5 to 0 to 4.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Did anybody have anything else that we need to, we just will meet, we meet Saturday morning here at 9 o'clock. I think we had 9 to 1 right, so Saturday, and then that's obviously the next section of,
Well, again, I want to welcome our new members. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
yeah, thank you for.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions in between, if you know, can't get hold of Jerry, or if Jerry can't, I'm happy to try to answer them.
And
Or email.
I'll tell you, everybody that's been on this board the first year, everything's so new, it's hard to even be informed enough to ask a question. So if you don't have a lot of questions, don't feel that they'll want to. Sure. It's common with all of us.
And then I had printed out, I gave you guys, I gave you the two pretty significant RSAs with, I think it was 32 and the one on right to know, 91A. It's just, you can peruse those. I mean, it's just an overview of what we can do and what we have to do. And so, I mean, you know, just an idea that we don't really provide any training, but we can give you some information on what we do.
But any, so answer any questions you might have.
Great, so somebody want to make a motion to adjourn? We all set?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
I'll vote that.